Months ago, when I decided to buy a Steam Deck, I bought myself a refurbished 64 gig with the intention of upgrading to a 1 terabyte storage. The refurbished 64 gig Steam Deck only cost me like $270, and the 1 terabyte SSDs are usually on sale for $75 to $85, making it way cheaper than the Steam Deck that comes with the 1 terabyte. But it has been several months since I purchased my Steam Deck, and I've yet to buy the 1 terabyte SSD because, again, I was being cheap. I finally sucked it up and bought myself a 1 terabyte SSD to upgrade my Steam Deck storage. All I had to do was open this bad boy up and swap it out. Easy peasy. Or so I thought. Usually when I have a problem, I call my good buddy Roberto from the Wolf Den. But this time, he had me come over and grace his live stream to help me upgrade to my new storage in my device. Who we were playing with on Apex the other day?
No.
Cake farts.
Oh, I did see that.
That's amazing. Initially, this was going to be an easy swap out, but for whatever reason, we opted to make things a little bit more complicated than it had to be. I'm going to explain the easy, fast way to do this, and then go into what we did, which took forever, and how you should probably not update your storage. So if you're planning on upgrading to a new SSD, here's what you will need. Well, you could get a 1 terabyte SSD on Amazon, and depending on the brand, you could get them on sale from like $75 to $85. I purchased mine for $85, which I've linked in the description below. You will also need a plastic device like a guitar pick or an orange Lego separator called a spudger to open up your Steam Deck. You're gonna need a thumb drive to either put SteamOS Recovery on or Clonezilla. You're gonna need a keyboard to enter prompts, and then you're gonna need a Steam Deck dock to plug everything into or some type of dongle with multiple ports. And finally, you're gonna need an enclosure to set up your new SSD and a screwdriver. But before you do anything, make sure you remove your micro SD card, otherwise you will snap it in half like some guy on Reddit did while trying to open up your Steam Deck, so don't do that. So the easiest way to upgrade your storage is by putting a recovery image on a flash drive like you would Windows to install onto a new computer. You boot it up and do a clean install of SteamOS and just re-download everything. You will have to set EmuDeck back up, but it'll be fast and it'll be just like having a new Steam Deck. Everything should be cloud safe, so you don't even have to worry about losing out on your precious time spent farming in Stardew Valley like my wife has been doing for weeks now. So what we did instead of this fast process was, instead of using a recovery image, Bob used Clonezilla, which should have in theory been easier because you're making an exact clone onto the new SSD and it should work fine. And Bob said he has done this before and it worked great, and this way you won't need to re-download everything. But while we were trying to upgrade the SSD this way, it ended up taking an extremely long time for some reason. Clonezilla took over an hour just to boot up because we were using a third-party dock with tons of things plugged into it. Eventually it worked though, and we started the cloning process. This actually ended up taking so much longer, to the point where we ended the stream after like 3 hours and I had to go home because it was already like past 12 a.m. and I had to go to bed. So I left my precious Steam Deck at Bob's house. He woke up the next day and saw that it failed. So what happened was, he initially made an ISO of the drive instead of a direct copy, which was a mistake. Bob ran it again a second time and it randomly just worked. So while we were setting this up, he thought we should partition the drive since I got a bigger SSD, going from 64 gigs to 1 terabyte. Bob thought we needed to scale all the partitions to the new drive, and someone in his chat said to do that, but it was wrong. Thank you, guy in the chat. You don't want to scale the partitions because Steam does it for you. And if you did it the way that we did it, it constantly copied 64 gigs over and over and over, and it just filled it up. You don't need to do that. Just let Steam do the work. If you want to use Clonezilla to do this process though, you only need to press A throughout the entire thing. And the only thing that matters is disk to disk. So just mash through the default options for everything else. You'll need a keyboard for this though, so make sure that's plugged in. When he finally got it working, I actually only had 700 gigs of storage out of the 1 terabyte. He ran it a third time and he chose to not scale the partition, and everything just worked. So basically you should just follow the tutorial, because he did this from like half memory and was half following along a tutorial as we went. If you don't have an SSD enclosure like Bob has, or a dock, easiest thing to do is to not clone it at all. Put the new SSD in and run recovery SteamOS and re-download everything. I also should note that the 64 gig SSD was very slow compared to all the other drives as well, which is why it took so long to get through this initial process. This was such a convoluted and extremely long thing to just try and avoid downloading all my games again on my Steam Deck. But hey, at least this time it wasn't my impatience that caused the issue. So if you're planning on upgrading to a a new SSD in your Steam Deck, just do it the quick and easy way and suck it up and download all your games again. So have you ever upgraded your SSD in your Steam Deck? If so, which way did you do it? As usual, everything seems to be very convoluted for me when I do these things, but if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. I'm almost at 5,000 subs. I'm gonna link Bob's stream that I was on in the description below, so go enjoy that if you want to watch the whole thing back. All right, goodbye.